want to reinforce the fact that the task force was a collaborative idea and is a collaborative effort, and you'll be meeting all of the task force members. And there are a couple of things that we want to go over so that you understand. Today we're not taking public testimony, but we do encourage you to send email notices and information to us. And also at the next meeting there will be a time for community input. And we haven't figured out quite how we might do that, but it will be important. But right off the bat, you know, you're very welcome to send emails and letters and information to us. So I want to also clarify that one of our task force members, Verna Wessel, is here to represent the Kaiser community and not Northwest Human Services. We had put that incorrectly on a notice. I apologize to you, Verna, about that. And I know that you'll notice at this meeting we are being recorded by CCTV, and it's streamed live, and there'll also be a playback schedule for Channel 21. So if people want to know of other dates and times, they are attached on the agenda, so we can get that out around, maybe circulated across the room. I'm not sure if everyone has, if we made enough copies. We'll put it on the website. That's a good idea. So task force members, you should have the following documents at your table. They're listed on your agenda, and all of these documents and handouts today for the Homeless Task Force website will be live on our website about noon tomorrow. So with that, the website name, thank you. It's http://homelesstaskforce.net. And if you want to see that in writing, it's on these agendas, and we'll make those available to you. All right, I'm going to ask the task force members. Everyone has the agenda, right? You all have your agenda, so you can look at the bulleted items on the agenda and see that those are the documents that should be at your place. If they're not, let us know and we'll get those to you. And now I'm going to ask our task force members to introduce themselves. And we do apologize that some of our members have to have their backs to you just because we're a fairly large task force, and so we set up in this way. But we want you to know again how much we appreciate the community members that have come today, how much we value your interest and your support for finding solutions to the homelessness issues in Marion and Polk counties. Thank you very much. All right, Commissioner Carlson, introduce yourself.
I'm Janet Carlson. I'm County Commissioner for Marion County. Also, I chair the Marion County Public Safety Coordinating Council. And really, this idea was birthed both Mayor Peterson and Jerry Moore from Salem, and also a number of other people in this room. I won't start naming all the people on the Public Safety Council serve on there, and really raised the issue of homelessness with the Public Safety Coordinating Council. We had a meeting where we focused on homelessness, actually showed the same video that we're going to see in a few minutes here, and then had a meeting after the meeting to decide where we wanted to go. And that's really when the idea of collaborating with Kaiser, Salem, Polk County, and Marion County was born. And so we realized that we couldn't just have this discussion with Marion County under the Public Safety Coordinating Council. It had to be a broader conversation. I also want to say that I was involved with the 10-year plan to end homelessness, which was, I think, approved in 2008, maybe 2008, 2009. It's not 10 years old yet. I thought it was, but so I know it's not 2006.
2009.
Is it 2009? All right. And there is a PowerPoint presentation that we, I think we have here, right? Hitesh, do you want to hand that out now to everyone? And also, we will put on the website this PowerPoint presentation and the original 10-year plan to end homelessness. It was done with a lot of community connections, but it does not have real specific goals and objectives. And so I think what this will do is allow us to take that plan and really add some meat on the bones to the plan. That's my hope for this group, is that we get some real solid recommendations that we can move forward and augment that plan that we started a number of years ago. So with that, I will turn it over to Laura.
I'm Laura Walker. I'm the staff support for the City of Salem.
I'm going to take the microphone back over to this way and have our other, I want to have our other task force co-chairs introduce themselves, and then we'll go around, and I want to say a heartfelt thank you to every one of these task force co-chairs who automatically and immediately said yes when they were asked to serve. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Peterson. I'm Kathy Clark. I'm the mayor of Kaiser. 3 of our task force member representatives are not able to be with us today due to some personal reasons. Kim Freeman is a city councilor who works with me, and she is not able to be here today. Patty Ignatowski, who is a rental property owner and longtime Kaiser resident, also had other plans prior to this meeting. She will be at the others. And Shani Starr had out-of-town obligations. So they will be watching the video from this and have done a lot of research, and will be looking over the information from this meeting. But when I asked them to be a part of this, actually some of them reached out to me and said, I want to get involved. This is important. This makes a difference for neighbors in my community, in my neighborhood, people I care about. And how can I make a difference? So when I asked them, they said yes. And I'm looking forward to hearing from a wide variety of people in our community as we look together to solve not only problems, but also to come to solutions that maybe we haven't thought of yet. Thank you very much.
I'm Jennifer Wheeler. I'm Polk County Commissioner. All of the Polk County representatives are here, and they'll introduce themselves. What I want to find out from this task force is I'd like to meet some of the community members who are actually doing the work and find out what services are being provided and maybe where the holes are, where the gaps are that need to be filled. I think we have a little bit of a different situation in Polk County. We have a number of homeless people who are invisible, and I'd like to bring them out into the light and see if we can get some services to those people. We have small communities that are they lack transportation, they lack all kinds of services that are more available in the cities. We have a small community of Falls City, especially, it has a high level of people who are living under the poverty line, and we have a real need out there. So I'm very anxious to find out the services and see how we can connect the people who need those services.
Warren, would you like to go ahead, and we'll just go around the table?
I hope there's some time at this point. First off, I'm Warren Benares. I'm on Salem City Council for Ward 7. And I've taken this homeless issue too dear to heart. I've spent a lot of time educating myself. And I think that's the very first thing that we as community leaders and decision makers need to do, is to educate ourselves, to know what services that are out there, to know what we can combine, to coordinate, to put together so that people aren't having to scramble to different locations, and we can concentrate our efforts in the different areas, but not take too much of a shotgun approach to the whole thing. I hope at some point we have a moment for any one of us to talk about some bullet points that we might have, as I have here, that would be informational and good for this task force to be looking at. What I'm looking for out of this initiative is an action plan, not a discussion, not a report. Maybe it'll have paperwork with it, but I really want an action plan that we can go out and take some firm action to help, and or if nothing else, curtail homelessness at this point. And I also would like to see if there could be a homeless or home insecure individual that is either on this board or at least closely allied with this board, so we can figure out, or several people that we can figure out what's their story, to know how we can more effectively. It's great. None of us, I suspect, in this initiative have ever been homeless, and there are plenty of people out there that might have some insights that we don't. So.
Excuse me, I apologize. I don't profess to be an expert in homelessness, so I have my homelessness expert right next to me, and I need to introduce him. He's not part of the task force, but he's definitely part of the Polk County team, and we're very proud to have him working for us. This is Brent DeMoe. He's the manager for Family and Community Outreach, and he is Polk County's expert, and he's here to help me.
I'm Ron Hayes. I run a company called Department of Mission Advancement, which is a subsidiary of Mountain West Investments, and I run the philanthropic arm of that company.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Bobb. I'm a member of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Round and a past council member for the tribes. I'm a Marine Corps Vietnam vet, and the veterans portion of this is the reason why I really got involved in this, to help veterans who are on the street and the issues that have put them there. So I'm familiar with some of the reasons of why they're there, and I want to definitely reach out and help some of these and hope that we can, change some of their lives for them with this group and actually make something happen. Because I've sat on a few boards where we have meetings, have a meeting, and that after a while kind of tends to make me a little crazy. So I hope that we can actually, get with a group that can make change and help some of these people. Thank you.
My name's Heidi Mackay. I push the button. My name's Heidi Mackay, and I'm with the West Salem Business Association. Sorry, I don't.
That silence.
It's just probably a bad mic.
I think the mic's over here.
Yeah.
My name's Heidi Mackay, and I'm with the West Salem Business Association.
Heidi, pushing the button just mutes the microphone.
Bruce Bailey with Union Gospel Mission. I brought with me my 3 experts, Myron Jones, who runs our men's shelter in Salem, Janine Knight, who runs the Samanka Place Shelter for Women and Children in Kaiser, and Shane Conaway, who runs our restoration house for reentry. One of the things I'm excited about is I'm going to give a kind of a +1 to what Warren said about let's see some real action at the end of this. Union Gospel Mission just revised our mission statement, and we look at not ending homelessness, but helping people break the cycle of homelessness. That's our approach to this. I'm not personally confident we will ever end homelessness. It's a very broad, aggressive goal, and we can work together for that. But if we can break that cycle of homelessness, I think we will make great strides.
Good afternoon. My name is it on? Can you hear me? Good. Okay. I'm Irma Oliveros, and I am the program assistant or homeless liaison for Salem Kaiser School District. I live in Polk County, so I think I'm kind of in both counties. But our program is called the STEP program, so it stands for Students in Transition Educational Program, and we do work with homeless families. We are trying to ensure that students are attending school and are able to get there on a daily basis. I'm really excited to be here because I kind of agree that we do have an issue in our community. We have seen our numbers of homeless students and families rise every year. I don't know that we can ever end it, but I sure would like to see it being minimized.
Good afternoon. I'm John Raves. I'm the Executive Director at the Community Action Agency, and we serve Marion and Polk counties primarily, and you'll hear from a few of the experts that are within our organization soon. I would like to say we need real community solutions, and when I see there's this much community interest in this particular topic, I don't know that I've ever seen that much interest in helping the homeless find stable housing and self-sufficiency. And so I can't be more pleased at the level of commitment to this. And so I just want to honor all the people in the room and those that haven't been able to make it, because this is, if we're going to ever make an advancement to help the people that are in need, it's going to be right now because the interest is here. So thank you to everyone.
Well, yes, I'd like to echo John's sentiments. I mean, this is pretty exciting. I'm Verena Wessel. Today, I'm serving in the capacity as the Kaiser Community Representative, but in years past, in my professional side, I've worked with homeless populations for the last 15 years. I was also on a committee that drafted the 10-year plan to end homelessness, and we've got to get some traction. It's not going to get any better, and so I'm just really excited to see so many interested faces in the room.
Good afternoon. I'm Jerry Moore. I'm the Chief of Police in Salem, and I am not an expert on homelessness, but I have a whole department of officers that interact with the homeless population on many occasions. I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of people in this room who do wonderful things and try and do everything they can to help those that are less fortunate than us. And I think there are a variety of groups that do great things. I would like to see better coordination and some way that we can all work together and try and make an impact on those who need our help out in this community.
Good afternoon. I'm Jason Myers, the Marion County Sheriff, and it's a pleasure to be here and to be working on this issue. I can tell you that the criminal justice system is not the right place for people that are homeless, and that's typically where they end up. And so I want to work together with this group to make sure that we do the right by this population that typically is suffering from drug and alcohol issues or mental health issues. And we have a great collaboration in this county and are doing some really great things. So it's good to see a room full of people that want to put their heads together and some skin in the game to work on this issue to make our community more livable and help this population.
Hi, I'm Mark Garton. I'm the Polk County Sheriff. So I hope that I can bring a little insight into some of that population on the other side of the river. And so I'm excited to work with this group and hope that I can offer something to the group.
And my name is, is this on? Yeah, my name is David Leith. I'm a Marion County Circuit Judge. I serve as the drug court judge for the Marion County Circuit Court. That role certainly gives me one window into the homeless issue, an issue of truly primary importance to the community. It's an honor to have been asked to serve with this group, and it's wonderful to see such strong interest in the community. I want to echo that as well. I should say I am a judge. I am serving as an individual on this commission or on this task force. With that background, but I'm in my individual capacity. I'm also still confirming with our Judicial Conduct Committee that it's okay for me to serve. I'm provisionally here. I'm not going to vote today on anything that comes up for a vote. I suspect that that's just a technicality, and we'll clear it shortly. But I'm grateful to be here, and thank you, Mayor Peterson, and all the co-chairs.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. I want to take a second to acknowledge one of our Salem City councilors who's in the back of the room, but is always in heart strongly with us on this issue, I know, and that's Councilor Anderson, who's in the back. You want to stand up? Tom Anderson, there you are. All right, thank you for being here. All right. I want to go over the list of things that are in front of the task force members just to make sure that you all have them. And you have a task force meeting agenda for today's meeting. There's a task force membership roster. There's the technical advisors list. It's the yellow sheet. And I really appreciate the people in the community who were agreeing to have their names and their service as a resource for us as technical advisors. We also have a list of the 2016 Homeless Task Force meeting dates. That's a kind of a goldenrod color, I think they call that. There's a flyer about an upcoming poverty simulation on Thursday, March 17th, 2016. And there's also the signed task force charters. The 4 jurisdictions, City of Kaiser, Marion County, Polk County, and City of Salem, each took to our governing bodies a charter, and those are, all of these documents will be available on our website. And we want to ratify this. So we need a motion right now to ratify. Would you? All right.
Second.
All right. It's been moved by Commissioner Carlson and seconded by Councilor Bednarz to ratify the Mid-Willamette Homeless Initiative charters. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. That's our first motion. I think we're in motion. I think we're set. All right.
What's the website again?
I'm happy to repeat that. It's http://homelesstaskforce.net.
Got it.
All one word. Okay? All right.
Excellent.
Uh-huh. All right. Now, before we move on to our item 2, we have a clip from a video clip from Jon Stewart called "The Homeless Homed," and I'm going to introduce Commissioner Carlson to introduce this to you.
So my son Christian, who's my baby boy, he's 29, loves Jon Stewart, and he looks at these clips on the internet and showed this to me a while back. And when we had our meeting at the Public Safety Coordinating Council, we actually used this clip to kind of introduce the topic of homelessness. I don't want anyone to misunderstand. It is humorous. Jon Stewart is a humorous person, and we're not trying to make light of homelessness, but what he does is in many ways makes light of some of the arguments that people use about the homeless, and really brings to light housing first, which is one of the topics that we're going to have here today. The person that you see speaking is Lloyd Pendleton, and I believe he is actually consulting now. He was the chair of the task force in Utah, where they did some tremendous work. I think they dropped the chronically homeless by something like 80%. I mean, it was a huge drop, and they invested a lot of resource in it, and he was involved in it and is now working in Washington, D.C., helping other jurisdictions learn how to do what they did in Utah. So please excuse the humorous nature of it. It's very digestible, and after we got done seeing it, it was amazing. People would say, well, like they said in the video this, and like they said in the video that. So I think you'll enjoy it, and also it will be instructive.
As Commissioner Carlson just said, all right, they don't have to move to Utah. I want to make a personal comment, and that is that.
Louder.
Oh, thank you. All right. I just wanted to make a personal observation and comment. I've had the opportunity to spend time at some of the shelters around the Salem area and to talk with people out in the park and as well as in shelters and on sidewalks, etc., over my 5 years plus of being mayor, and even before that. And I want to tell you, I have never talked to a homeless person who told me they set out to be homeless. Never. And so I've always carried that thought with me, and it has always reminded me that there's something else that has happened in their lives. There's some other reason. It's not necessarily a situation, it's not a situation of choice, and I just want all of you to know that we firmly know and understand that. It's not something that someone sets out planning to be. So I want you to know that this is a task force made up of people who come from an orientation of seeing individuals as individuals and seeing this problem as a problem that is for our entire community to work to solve. Now I'm going to move on to my agenda. So if you live in Salem, I'm sure you've seen homeless on the street corners and on park benches and even around the city bridges. So before we try to solve the homeless problem, we need some very basic information. Some of the questions that I and my co-leaders have are: who are the homeless in Marion and Polk counties? Who are the chronically homeless? Is there a standard definition of a chronically homeless individual compared to a homeless individual? Is it important to make the distinction, and why? How many homeless people are there in Marion and Polk counties? Who counts the numbers, and how are they counted? Why, with all the low-income housing units, Section 8 vouchers, grants, etc., can we not place anyone who needs a permanent home into a permanent home? What barriers do homeless people encounter, and what services or tools do we currently have to address them? Here to help lead us navigate the answers to these questions is Laura Walker, Federal Programs Project Coordinator from the Urban Development Department for the City of Salem. Laura?
You can't hear me? Okay. Okay, this is going to be interesting. So we're going to talk a little bit about the background and the scope. And we're going to also have some panelists up here because they're really the experts. So I'll let them introduce themselves as well if they want to go ahead and come up. So in between this presentation, there are going to be some sections where we're going to stop and let the panelists answer some of the questions, and then also provide an opportunity for the board to ask questions of the panelists. So hopefully that will be helpful.
I can talk really loud. My name's Andy Welch.
Microphone.
Not loud enough in the back.
Good afternoon. My name is Andy Welch. I'm the administrator of the Salem Housing Authority. Glad to be here. We are located at 360 Church Street. We house about 3,745 households every day, which is a total of almost 9,000 individuals. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Christian Edelblut. I'm the director of the West Valley Housing Authority serving Polk County. We serve about 1,100 households on a daily basis. Happy to be here as well.
Good afternoon. I'm Shelley Ahinger, the Executive Director of the Marion County Housing Authority. We serve a little over 800 families through our Section 8 program, and we do a 3.5, so that's about 2,400 individuals. We also serve over 270 in the properties that we own throughout the unincorporated areas of Salem, Kaiser, and the urban growth boundary.
Hi, I'm Diane Mary. I'm with Community Action. I'm here for Amber Reeves, who fell sick recently, so I'm filling in. I've got Amber's notes, so I hope I can provide some information. Community Action is part of the continuum of care, and we also do the annual homeless count.
And I'm Linda Strike. I'm also from Community Action Agency, and I'm a program coordinator at Arches of several different housing programs there.
Hello, I'm also from Community Action Agency. My name's Craig Botsey. I'm with the CARS program, Community Action Reentry Service. So I'm here to speak to specifically reentry clients, those folks who are returning to our community after serving some time in incarceration or currently on some sort of supervision, parole, and probation.
Mayor Peterson would like to introduce someone else as well.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce to all of you our city manager, our fairly new city manager, Steve Powers, is in the back of the room, and I want to make a heartfelt thank you to Mr. Powers, because as the minute that we started talking about this homeless initiative, he was strongly on board and said, yes, we'll assign staff and we'll support this. So thank you. Thank you so much for making this possible for us. Thank you.
All right, so the first slide that we have here is defining what homelessness is versus chronically homeless. And the basic distinction between the two is that chronically homeless are those folks that have some diagnosable disability, whether it be mental, physical, or a substance abuse issue. It also has to do with the time that they have been homeless. The other two definitions that we have on this particular slide are sheltered and unsheltered. And the folks that you guys see out on the streets are the unsheltered. Those are the folks that don't have anywhere to go. The sheltered, that could be people who are in emergency shelters or transitional housing, but they are still considered homeless. The second one we have here are the certain housing types that we talk about. So emergency shelters are going to be those that are the traditional one-night stay where they have a room or a bed. They may not necessarily have an apartment or something like that. Transitional housing is used for folks to build up a rental history, and typically that runs from 6 months to 2 years. And they're able to stay there. It's usually a subsidized housing for them to stay in and build their rental capacity and sometimes work on job skills and that type of thing. affordable housing can be a whole gamut of things, and depending on the funding types, depends on what the income restrictions are. So it depends what type of funding is in the project. For instance, if home money's in it, then you're capped at an 80%. LIHTC money may cap you at 140%. But in any affordable housing, traditionally the tenants that occupy those units cannot participate in expending more than 39% of their income towards that unit. So permanent housing, it has no time limit. It's long-term housing, so they're going to stay there. We plan on them staying there once they're in it. Permanent supportive housing, the distinction is that typically there are services provided on site for those folks. A lot of times this is where you see the elderly living, or there are persons with disabilities living in the housing. You'll also hear about this when it comes to building with housing first in mind. So we'll get into a deeper discussion about that. Tenant-based rental assistance can be provided. Everyone knows about Section 8 housing vouchers, but there are also other tenant-based rental assistance programs. The city actually provides funding for a couple of tenant-based rental assistance programs where there are services provided with that money. So it can either be transitional or permanent, depending on the funding source. So the next slide talks about the homeless count. So in 2015, the number that we counted was 1,660. And the total chronically homeless of that number was 308. And below that, you can see the numbers for the specific counties and cities. And then also over to the side is the jail and school count. The way that information is counted, it's difficult to combine that into the counties. And when they give the COC presentation here in just a little bit, they'll go into more detail with that. So you can also see in the 2015 homeless count, there is a breakdown of veterans, victims of domestic violence, families, and persons with health conditions. As you can see, there's a huge percentage of persons who were counted that had some type of health condition that they reported. Oops. Okay. So the current housing stock, which is, Hitesh, I believe we have a housing inventory list. So you'll see there's a housing inventory list that's going to be passed out. This particular list is a combination of the affordable units that we are currently aware of in the counties of Polk and Marion. It does not account for establishments that consider themselves as emergency shelter. And I know that some of the emergency shelters are actually transitional housing. One of them that I noticed is not on there is the Lighthouse Shelter with Salvation Army is actually transitional housing, but they consider themselves an emergency shelter.
Question. On your wait list there, you have 5,971, and that's persons, not households.
Oh, I haven't gotten that far yet. Are you talking about for Salem?
Yeah, on your wait list there.
Okay, so the first part where it talks about the affordable units on this list that you're getting is 3,866 actual units. The second part are vouchers, which are separate from the housing inventory list that you're getting. So the vouchers are for the various housing authorities, and they can go into more detail when they do the panelist discussion as well. But currently, Marion County has a total of 1,182 vouchers, and of that, 1,006 of those are currently in circulation. They have 1,749 on the wait list. So that's what those numbers are for Marion County, and then Salem, and then West Valley.
Clarification, I was wondering, is the 1,749 on the wait list, is that individuals or households?
Households.
Households.
Households. Yeah. Typically, when we talk about housing, all of the numbers are going to be household-based. And if they are talking about services, typically they're going to be individual-based. So those are those numbers. And then HUD also puts together a housing inventory chart. This is part of the homeless count as well, where they count the emergency shelter beds, which we have 250, and then transitional shelter beds at 292. And at the very bottom, when you talk about the other tenant-based rental assistance programs, there are other funding sources like OHOP and HOME and ESG and COC that pass out tenant-based rental assistance vouchers, and that can vary depending on how much funding they get annually or what types of applications are submitted for those funds. So typically there's between 200 and 300 of those in circulation as well, and that would be households. So for the panelist discussion,
Trying to see if this is the microphone that didn't work for the mayor. It's not very loud. Can you hear me? All right. So the question that I have is, we've got another list that Community Action uses at the Reentry Resource Center, and I know Craig is going to speak to that. So if there are units on this housing inventory list, are those units that are subsidized with federal money generally through the housing authorities? Because what I know is that with folks that are in the reentry initiative, well, first of all, if you're on a waiting list, you're not going to get a voucher because you have to wait until that time. They've got to find a place to live within, well, right away, or if they're in transitional housing, within 90 days. So what they're looking for is an apartment that's going to be low enough rent that's willing to take someone with a criminal background, that type of thing. So the list that we're handing out, Hitesh, you're going to hand that list out right now, right? That list? Okay, so is that in addition to this, or is that encompassed within your numbers?
so the list that we have here with the housing inventory are all of the properties that we are aware of that have federal funding and or the counties are aware of that may even be outside of that federal funding or state funding. There may be other privately owned units that are affordable housing that we are not aware of. And it's hard to collect that data unless we know that the landlord can provide that information to us, or if they give us a call, we can certainly add that to the list. And you'll note that there are lots of different types of funding sources that fund affordable housing. Everything from low-income housing tax credits to home money to ESG to housing authority, PHAs. They also have project-based buildings and also public housing facilities. There are lots of different types of affordable housing, and when we talked about originally, depending on the funding source, that's going to depend on what income level can access those units. Typically, even in the particular projects that we funded through the city, typically all of the units are occupied by persons with incomes below 50% of area median income. And later in this slide presentation, we're going to talk about income, so you'll kind of give an idea of what that amount is. So the first question for the panelist discussion is, why is there not enough permanent housing? So I'll let someone decide if they want to talk.
Thank you, Andy Welch again. I just put together some high-level reasons why we see not just homeless individuals, but any individuals that we're housing, why they might not be successful. First and foremost in today's market, it's really a scarcity of modest housing. And I have couple numbers here to just give you the sense of where the market has gone and why what used to be affordable housing, open market affordable housing without subsidy, there was plenty of affordable housing in the private sector 2 years ago. Now it's blown up and that private sector rents have gone up very high. So I have two sources that I want to cite. One is Multifamily Northwest Fall Apartment Report. Salem and the vicinity, so this is for the MSA. Once again, Salem and the vicinity has the 5th lowest vacancy rate out of 23 markets, down to 2.5% in the fall, and that was 13% lower. The vacancy rate went down by 13% from the spring of 2015 to the fall of 2015. Salem and vicinity average rent per square foot increased to $1.13 per foot, which is a 9.7 increase from spring of 15 to fall of 15. I should mention that multifamily does a spring report and a fall report. Salem and vicinity experienced rent increases of 10% since the spring report, 10%. Salem and vicinity landlords offering rental incentives. This is kind of an odd data point, but it's interesting. Salem and vicinity landlords offering rental incentives to prospective renters went down 28%. So if you know that rent units weren't in demand in the market, the overall incentives would not go down like that. They'd be flat at best. A different, more local source is year-over-year data from SMI Commercial Real Estate. So this is 2014 to 2015. The one-bedroom, one-bath rents increased by 9%. The two-bedroom, two-baths increased by 6.9%. The two-bedroom, one-and-a-half baths increased by 11.5%. Two-bed, two-baths increased by 8.6%. And the three-bedroom, one-bath only increased by 3.44. So when we talk about scarcity of housing, it's the marketplace going wild. And what you might know is that in the housing needs assessment that has gone in front of the City Council and the Mayor for action, that 37% of the population in the Salem SMA, 37% of the households, there's a total of 57,000 households, 37% earn $35,000 or less. So it's an economic issue as well. The open market, another variable, if I can continue to go on. Open market versus permanent affordable housing. Open market being without subsidy, private sector, maybe public sector without subsidy. So the permanent or the open market fluctuates based upon market variables. The rents go up. Units that were less desirable become more desirable. And permanent units will move in the market too, but they're generally subject to fair market rents that HUD puts out. And HUD will take off the highest units, and they'll delete the lowest units. And so they look for more of a kind of a sweet spot in the middle. And so permanent affordable housing means that it is affordable in perpetuity, but it also means that it doesn't mean that there's not raises that go on each year, but they're more constant on a flatter curve. Local and state federal funding, as any housing authority or anybody who's dependent on some degree of federal funds realizes that federal funds are decreasing and have been decreasing for years. We're still in what's called sequestration, year 8 of 10, I believe. So at any point in time, resources could continue to go down. Probably more germane to this discussion is about demand for housing. The demand for housing leaves hard-to-house populations behind. Hard-to-house populations can't compete in the marketplace, right? I'm going to keep going on. I'm just going to put it all out there. Excuse me?
Please
Do
stand
you?
the mic if
Okay.
you can.
Very good.
Is it time for a question? Andy, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
From your data, is it a matter of, excuse me, people moving into the area, or a mix of flat rate construction because of the economy? Or is it a mixture of both?
Well, I don't have any data on that, but I have some anecdotal kind of information. I believe that construction is ratcheting up quite a bit, though I think it's slowing down again because the market's flattening out a little bit again, right? I think it was a lot of pent up anxiety in the market, and that there was a rush. There is new construction, but they're not affordable housing, right? And that's the problem.
But there might be more affordable housing if people from in this area moved up to better housing, if you will, and make these other apartments and facilities more affordable for lower income or no income.
I think that's a model that can work, but it's doesn't always in the marketplace either.
If I could, I just want to say that Andy is in the urban areas. Christian and I have a different situation in the more rural communities of Marion County. Specifically, in this room, last year, we issued over 700 vouchers to individuals to live outside the urban growth boundary in the cities of Salem and Kaiser. 128 families were successful in finding housing. We have today 150 people with vouchers in their hands, and they cannot find a place to lease up in those areas outside the city of Salem, Kaiser, and the urban growth boundary. The wait list opened last March, and it's continuously open. We've gone through over 1,700 individuals, and they just give up after a period of time. We have the 1,749 as of February the 1st. We will be calling in 650 people in March to start this process all over again.
Shelley, what's the vacancy rate in your areas?
Much less than that. We, Ron, have the specific, they don't keep specific data just for the smaller communities. So when we go out, we go to our real estate companies and our management people, and in talking with them, they're saying that it's less than 1% in the rural parts of the community. I have a staff person that we send out at least once every other week to drive around and try to find places for our families.
Thanks.
Thank you. I want to be sure to ask our other panelists if they have something they would like to add to further kind of answer these questions. I didn't mean to not have you on the podium at all. We're kind of running short on time, but I want you to, because then we're going to actually have a discussion about the best practices of housing first. Okay?
Again, I'm Linda from Arches. One of the things that in addition to just the lack of affordable housing and difficulty with people, our programs, they're scattered sites, so they're going out just like Section 8 in the general market. But then most of our folks have criminal histories or a very bad rental history, so they're struggling with low vacancy, lack of affordable rents, and then they have all these other barriers to getting in. And when landlords don't, they've got anybody they want to pick from to lease up to. So we're actually having people that are not able to get into housing as well, even though we would be able to pay for them. So it's a huge problem.
Anna?
Thank you.
Question?
Yes, Councillor Bednarz.
So one of the things that I've learned is there was a program out there. It was rental classes. So basically you as an individual could go and learn how to be a better tenant. And that funding for that program went away. And I don't know who had it, who was funding that program, but it sure made sense that if you had bad rental history, you were a bad tenant, and you're trying to figure things out, you'd want to get into that program to help get over that hump.
So Community Action Agency actually runs the rent program, and we are currently still doing that, but the funding stream that we're using will no longer allow that after, I believe it's this year. The problem is that because of the money that is being used for that and is available for that, we can only serve people who are literally homeless. So if we have somebody who just has an eviction notice and they're struggling with getting housing stabilized, we can't serve them with that class.
So who makes the funding decisions on that? Who do we go to basically and find out, or policy changes that we can make to see what we can do with to get more funds for that program? That's where I'm trying to get to.
Most of our funding streams that we have at Arches are designed for actual housing or case management, supportive service type case management.
Federal money?
Mm-hmm.
So federal strings, federal requirements.
Correct.
All those.
And so that type of a program, that education type of program, really requires money that's more unrestricted and doesn't have that specific target.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, did you want to add something to this? No, okay. Yeah, it is difficult to get. Okay, I wanted to check with our other panelists to see if they had a comment. We don't want to cut you off.
Real brief. I'm looking at the second bullet up there, what barriers are there, and the population I work with is formerly incarcerated folks. is just an example. It's just a subset of the barriers. But you know, people don't necessarily fall into one category. So some of these things are overlapping, where you have incarceration history, you've got mental health issues, you've got barriers to employment, and all those things. So it's complex, but you know, I'm proud of Marion County reentry initiative coming, you know, getting everybody on board to address these issues and try to find a solution that works.
And I'd like to comment, and even though this microphone isn't working properly. Okay.
Hello?
Is it working now? Okay, well, here you go.
There you go.
I wanted to just quickly note that among all of the different housing programs and the different services that are provided certainly through City of Salem, City of Kaiser, Marion County, Polk County, and I know I can speak for my fellow elected officials, we do not tolerate discrimination in housing in any form. We do not tolerate discrimination against people who are in various situations in their lives, and we certainly would want to know if anyone in the public is experiencing that situation, because it's certainly against the law, it's certainly against the standards and the beliefs that we have as a community and as elected officials. Yes, Commissioner Carlson.
So the last question that talks about, is there a subset? I think the intent behind that question is, as we heard in Utah, they took a look at the chronically homeless. In Arizona, I think they looked at veterans, maybe chronically homeless veterans. And so while maybe we don't want to answer that question today, with more than 1,600 people that are on a waiting list or are considered to be homeless, we probably can't address every population all at once. We're going to have to take a bite at the apple, one bite at a time. So I would love to have our experts maybe come back to this group with a recommendation about where we might start in terms of looking at expanding housing capacity or expanding services for homeless people to be able to move them into housing. So I just want to throw that challenge out to the group.
I have a quick question for Andy.
Yes.
Andy, you were saying that we dropped from spring to fall in percentages in housing availability, and could you repeat that again?
I certainly will. Excuse me, I have to find my information. The Salem and vicinity experienced rent increases of 10% since spring of 2015.
Okay, that was the fall figure.
Well, this is the fall figure. So between spring and fall, there was a 10% increase in rents.
Okay, so we're almost to spring again. When will those figures be out again? Do you know?
I think they come out in February, and then they have the report in March.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank our panelists, and we look forward to you being back with us with more information and more time on our agenda, which we will definitely provide because we very much want to hear from you. So let's look at what works in housing and what researchers in the field call best practices. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines best practices as a procedure that has been shown by research and experience to produce optimal results and that is established or proposed as a standard suitable for widespread adoption. That's what we call best practices. One of the best practice models making headlines around the nation right now is the Housing First model. So here to tell us about it are Margaret Sully Salazar and Kristen Arnold from HUD's Portland field office. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you so much to everyone. Truly an honor to be here for this initial task force. Can folks hear me? I'm not as funny as Jon Stewart, but I will do my best to try to keep your attention. I'm Margaret Salazar. I'm the HUD Field Office Director for the Oregon State Field Office. With me today is Kristen Arnold, who's going to be sharing some specifics on Housing First. But I wanted to just make some broader comments as well. The first thing I wanted to do is just commend all of you for convening this conversation and getting all the right perspectives in the room, and also to the comment of bringing in folks who are experiencing homelessness as well. These kinds of conversations are so critical, and I just really applaud your leadership in pulling this body together to begin this conversation. Today we're here to talk to you about the Housing First model, but I just also want to let you know that we are here and available to serve as a resource for you as a federal partner as you look at really holistic approaches to addressing homelessness. Everything from how you can use HUD programs to increase the stock of affordable housing, to repair and upgrade your existing affordable housing stock, to think about how to use vouchers in a creative way, and so many other things that you can do with federal funding sources. I certainly heard the critiques of some of the barriers in using HUD programs. Not the first time I've heard some of those comments, and I'm aware of some of the constraints sometimes that our funding streams will have. I just want to let you know on the record that we are here again as a resource for you as you get further down the track in your conversations. If you're running into barriers from our programs, we're available to help you think through how you might be able to use our programs creatively and what we can do to help alleviate some of those burdens. I did want to note that certainly over the years, federal funding has decreased to address housing and homeless issues, but I am pleased that this year we actually fared pretty well in the HUD fiscal year 16 budget. Most of our program funding held steady, which was a relief because there were some really major cuts at stake, and we weathered those storms, and our funding remains fairly steady this year. So again, we're here as a resource as you go through this conversation, but today we're here to talk about Housing First, and I'm going to bring up our program expert, and that's Kristen Arnold from our HUD office. Thank you.
Margaret. So my name is Kristen Arnold, and I am the Community Planning and Development Representative working out of the Portland Field Office. I work. Hold the mic up, please. Sorry, thanks. Okay, so my name is Kristen Arnold, and I am a Community Planning and Development Representative out of the Portland Field Office, and I work with the CPD programs, which include HOME, CDBG, Continuum of Care, Emergency Solutions Grant, previously the Emergency Shelter Grant, HOPWA, and I think that's it. I should know, right? Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through this. We're running out of time.
Kristen, I'm sorry. Just want to make sure if there were any acronyms in there, can you throw out the real term?
CDBG is the Community Development Block Grant. It's kind of a mix of public services, streets and sidewalks, rehab, housing. It goes to the city of Salem. HOME is the it's like an affordable housing program. I don't even know. And that goes to the city of Salem as well. It does rental assistance and rehabs and develops affordable housing. And then, like I said, the Emergency Solutions Grant is specifically for homeless prevention and people experiencing homelessness. They fund shelter, rental assistance, stabilizing services. HOPWA is housing opportunities for persons with HIV and AIDS. Continuum of Care funds permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, which is a short-term rental assistance program. So kind of that mix of all those federal resources that all come into this city and I believe the CAP agency. Those are kind of our contacts for those sources. So I will get to Housing First. So I'm going to provide a brief overview. What is it? Why does HUD support it? A little background on where it came from. Why are we talking about it now? How old is this concept? Why is it a concept? And then using it with other housing models. And then a little bit about coordinated assessment, because it is directly related to that or used with Housing First. And then some examples, but more of like information to take home, things to think about as we're going through. Okay. So what is Housing First? There's a handout of an article that someone from the United States Interagency Council wrote that goes a little bit, it explains it very well as a concept. But so basically, it's not a program, it is a whole system orientation and response. So this is how you're handling a specific population in your community. It is taking someone from the streets or shelter and immediately putting them into permanent housing. But there are some components to that, there are some elements to that. It's not just placing them in housing, but that is the general concept. So what is permanent housing? HUD sees permanent housing as something with a 1-year lease, and then they do not have to leave. It is not time limited. That doesn't mean that the subsidy stays forever, or the resources supporting that person are there in perpetuity, but it means that this person doesn't have to think about what they have to do in 1 month or 2 years. Like this is their home. They don't have to think about living in crisis anymore. They can start thinking about a future. That is a really, they show that, the evidence shows that when someone can start thinking about that, then they can do some, it makes life easier for them. They're more willing to engage in services, to understand what's happening with them. They're not in a constant state of emergency every day, and it's very hard to function like that. So another concept that's very important is services are not a requirement for obtaining and maintaining this housing. This can sometimes be controversial, but this is a big element of Housing First. There's no prerequisites like completion of a course of treatment or evidence of sobriety to receive assistance. This creates trust, and it also creates a low threshold for getting into housing. So there aren't barriers. You're going to meet someone where they're at right now. You're not waiting for them to become housing ready. This doesn't mean that services are not important. Case management supports, healthcare, income supports, employment services are all necessary, but it's provided in a way where this person they can start thinking about the future and engage in services in a different way than having them work a program, I guess. Okay, so Housing First is a proven method ending all types of homelessness and is the most effective approach in ending chronic homelessness. Okay, so why does HUD support it? Well, Housing First is seen as a long-term solution and saves money. Facts and data matter to HUD and matter to funders, and this has been researched for over 10 years, so that's why it is evidence-based. That is why it's a best practice. We can say that this works if there's capacity and if the elements are there and kind of everyone's on the same page moving in the same direction. So keeping people on the streets is expensive. I think that was identified in the video, and more expensive to the community than housing them and setting them up to maintain their housing. So background of Housing First. I kind of touched on this. It's just kind of an evolution of thought of meeting people where they're at. The concept of being housing ready wasn't really working. That is what the studies show. This is about systems change. What we thought would work doesn't appear to work. You can't demand someone to be housing ready. So there's an old concept of transitional housing. It can be defined in many different ways, and this can also be controversial. And not to say there isn't a place for it, but I think the traditional way of thinking about it is that there's lots of rules that you have to adhere to in order to get into permanent housing. And what was happening were people who have high barriers, are hardest to serve, they weren't making it. They weren't making it into permanent supportive housing through these programs. And so I think that's part of this looking at things a little differently and trying to be more efficient with the funding sources and not having the revolving door of people just continuing to need those services. Okay, Housing First with other housing models. So Housing First is the intervention. You remove the individual or family from their situation But what follows is really important to the success of those individuals and families, just like any other intervention. So there's two, I guess, housing models. So permanent supportive housing and then rapid rehousing. I'm going to define these things for you. They can be funded through different funding sources, but they're really concepts as well. So when you house these people, you can provide them permanent supportive housing or rapid rehousing. Permanent supportive housing are going to target those who are going to need a long-term subsidy. This is persons who are disabled, who have high need for services, complicated services. They're on a fixed income. You know, it's going to be very hard for them to maintain housing for the rest of their life without a long-term subsidy and services. So identifying who it is that you're serving at the very beginning is very important to strategically use your resources. The second is rapid rehousing, which provides quick access to permanent housing through temporary rental assistance and supportive services on a time-limited basis. So we know that homelessness is often the direct result of a financial crisis or other crisis. Most families experiencing homelessness are not significantly different from other poor families. Short-term assistance has shown tremendous promise in resolving the immediate crisis of homelessness. An operating principle is that households should not receive assistance above level of need. Most households experiencing homelessness will be able to exit homelessness with shorter term and less intensive assistance. So this is basically saying that not everybody needs a long-term support, and there's funding sources out there that are time limited, but the idea is that you're assessing those people who come through the door, you're identifying their needs, and you're giving them the right amount and type of assistance, and then you're reassessing them to see if they need to continue this assistance or if the situation is getting better. So those are just kind of like the two different models that you can use. So coordinated assessment as a piece of this. So this is a tool that makes a community more effective and efficient with their limited resources. A client entering into the homeless service delivery system will get the same access to housing and services no matter where they start their process. So that is really important. So that just means if I go through any door, that person is going to know what is available to me in that community instead of saying, this is what I have at this agency available for you, and which is what happens sometimes, and everybody wants to help. But if you kind of have if you know what's in your pocket, if your pocket of resources is bigger, then I think that it's identifying the right type of assistance at that time for that family and then reassessing them. So this tool assumes continued evaluation and understanding the community's resources. So this is kind of just like a shared knowledge of what is available in the community. And then it reduces the stress on the person trying to access that housing and access the housing and the services. Okay. All right, last slide. Oh, there are no examples. Okay, on your PowerPoint, it's kind of giving you some links. But what I want you to think about is. So the first step is creating community knowledge. It's not on there. It's okay. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's just a link. So this is about creating a knowledge community. This is about who has an understanding of the concepts you're talking about and what role can they play. It is not just about what you know, but who else knows it. Is everyone that serves this population on the same page and moving in the same direction? If not, try to find out why these basic ideas aren't being implemented across the community. And then finally, I've provided the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness Housing First checklist. And so this is a tool that communities can use to adopt Housing First across their programs and all over the community response. I really encourage you to take a look at it. It's not a long document. It is, you can use it, you can apply it to any program, and it just kind of asks some questions about what you're doing and would it fit into a Housing First model. So.
Will all this stuff get put on the website?
Yeah, all of these will be on the website.
Okay, all of this information will be on the website.
The Homeless Task Force website?
Yes, it's all going to be on our website.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That'll be helpful helping for us to look
Good,
it up.
all right, thank you. Yes, and I think, is Laura coming back up, or? No, okay. All right.
I have a question for those two.
You have a question, all right. Fire away.
So I have a question on housing first, and I actually went to the housing conference to get an answer to my question, and I didn't get it there. So now I'm asking you, and maybe you don't have it today, but I'd like to know. So the question is, so if we have 1,600 families or whatever without housing, and we go out and start trying to expand housing capacity, we're not gonna build 1,600 new units in Salem, Kaiser, and rural Marion County. We're gonna have to, again, try to select where we go. So do you have thoughts on projects? I mean, this is what, so you have homeless, people who have been homeless or people who are low income all living together in the same area, or scattered, so you have a few units that are mixed in by income, so some are lower income, because I've heard that the research is moving against the idea of having everybody together, and at the same time, if I have a 50 unit dwelling and I make 25% of them, I've got to build a whole lot now more to get the number of units that I need for that population. So do you have thoughts on that, just kind of the nickel version of it? And then I'd like to explore that more deeply as we move through our meeting, especially probably next month when we talk more about the housing supply.
Basically, your question.
So I think it's a critical question that communities are struggling with, is that balance of how are we going to meet the need and house so many people? Are we going to be able to build our way out of this? Are we going to be able to build our way out of it with market rate housing development because we do have a pent-up demand? Are we going to build our way out of it with subsidized affordable housing, or some mix of both of those? Or do we need to be more aggressive about utilizing those vouchers in creative ways? And I think the answer is all of the above. I know that's a cop-out answer, I'm sorry. But I do, because I think it's a mix of strategies. So I don't think personally that we have enough housing developments that are affordable developments. I think we just need more hard units, is what we call it in our world, is the hard units, because if you have people co-located, you also have the opportunity to locate services on site, which can be very, very beneficial for folks. And there's a lot of new models around healthcare where you could locate healthcare services on site. There's a lot of folks working with coordinated care organizations on that. There's also creative things that you can do, like project basing of Section 8 vouchers, and I know my Public Housing Authority friends are here from the local PHAs, and I think I've talked to most of you about that, and most of you are working on that. So taking a share of those vouchers and locating them in those mixed income communities so that you don't have folks having to find, pound the pavement and look for those private market housing options. And then the final thing I'll say is a lot of communities are working really aggressively, and I know the housing authorities here are doing this too, in landlord recruitment and retention. So you heard a little bit earlier about the sort of the funds for the outreach to landlords. There's contingency funds. Portland has done a lot of work on this, and Eugene as well, on sort of not only aggressively trying to recruit landlords to rent to low-income persons and persons with vouchers and veterans with vouchers, but also creating a contingency fund with local money, and even a 24-hour hotline to give those private market landlords a little bit of peace of mind that if there is a problem with this voucher tenant, there's a lot of concern about renting to homeless individuals and families, that there's somebody there to help them out. So those are just a few of the strategies that we've seen. Anything you want to add?
I would say that, there are financial models that we can look up and share with you how people are kind of making more with less and how they're serving those communities. I think that, it's all about mixing the financing, and that's the most complicated part. So if you can find a developer, whether it's a nonprofit or a mission-driven developer who can really help you work through those, I think that they can be huge assets to the community.
I have a question.
I have a question. All right, who was first there with the question? I didn't see who had their hand up.
Okay,
so.
I'll ask. So
All right.
are the housing first models following the HUD definition of homeless? So the applicants that are applying for housing first model, do they have to fit the HUD definition of homeless?
So what drives who gets served are kind of the definitions that HUD puts on the funding source, but that doesn't mean you can't do housing First, Housing First is taking someone off the streets or the shelter. So yes, the HUD funding serves those individuals. They serve homeless. You can adopt that, but Housing First can also, it doesn't have to be, it should be tied to all funding sources available, not just HUD funding sources.
Is there any discussion about the different definitions of homelessness through HUD and McKinney-Vento, combining those?
We get a lot of questions related to that, specifically when you're mixing funding, and I believe the school system gets different homeless funding as well with different definitions. These are statutory, these are regulatory, so it's almost like make a matrix and then see where they all fit in. And again, it's part of that coordinated assessment. What type of housing does this person need, and what funding source fits in to that? We've collaborated with the Veterans Administration in working on that definition of homeless as well. I believe it's something that they're trying to adopt through interagencies. I think Margaret could maybe do some work on that as well. So, and are you saying, so McKinney-Vento and then HUD, like what other HUD programs are popping out in your head?
What I see is that we have families that are doubled up, and under McKinney-Vento, they're considered homeless, but they're not eligible for some of these programs, some of these housing programs, and so that's a big barrier for a lot of our families that are doubled up. And so I'm just looking and wondering.
So the Emergency Solutions Grant is the funding source that fits into that continuum of care that funds homeless prevention or people who are at risk. So it's just dedicated funding sources, a different dedicated funding source. So there's a COC that also has rapid rehousing, which is the short-term assistance, and then permanent housing, and then Emergency Solutions Grant, which funds the prevention. So it's identifying what's in your community and then getting that person the right source.
If I can just add to that, you can see this devolves into very technical lingo very quickly. We're doing our best not to go there. I think that the housing inventory that you all passed around earlier is a great start at sort of laying out for the community and for this task force the inventory of housing that you have, and perhaps something similar about the level of funding that your communities are receiving, through which programs, and what the requirements are. Definitions might be another helpful tool along those same lines to de-jargonify some of the conversation. Okay, great. Well, thank you all for the questions, and like I said, we're
Salem MSA, and we represent 10.2% of the population of the state of Oregon. How can we assure that from HUD we're getting our adequate fair share of HUD funding to this area?
We'll get right on that.
HUD funding is such a, there's so many programs involved, and they are based on formulas that are set, and we can explain those formulas to you. We can get the information for you. You can ask our field office, but please specify the program and that you would like to know that information about.
Okay.
Yeah, and just one other quick thing. So, some of it is formula funding, but I also want to add, we do have kind of other programs that you can access that aren't specific grant funding that's provided to housing authorities, cities and counties through formulas. We have other optional grants that we can also help you understand and learn about. And then we even have financing programs for the construction and rehab of rental housing that we want to make sure you all are aware of those and optionally use those.
So I could just add, our next meeting we wanted to talk about development and capacity and supply. And federal funding is not always, as most of you know, the most economical funding. And so we want to maximize what we can get through the federal sources, but we also want to look at others. Yeah. And you may be aware that the Oregon legislature allocated a sizable amount that they're going to bond, that there's an application process that will be open fairly soon with Oregon Housing and Community Services. And if we can get our priorities connected quickly enough, we might be able to apply for some of those funds for some of the things that we might want to do here.
Could I ask a question? To the extent that new subsidized construction units is part of the solution that ends up being appropriate here, does the evidence point to any best practices with respect to the right division of public-private responsibility in that partnership?
So the question is about public-private partnerships in building new units of affordable housing. And I think your question is not so much about the right mix of sort of units in the building or configuration.
No, it's responsibility for
of the-
aspects of either.
Who plays what role in the
Right.
partnership?
Right.
What role does the public sector, the nonprofit, and the private investor? Yeah, and I think actually a great voice as to be part of that conversation would be Oregon Housing Community Services, because they run the low-income housing tax credit program, which is essentially a public-private partnership that's created to build those. So I think they would actually be probably in a better position to help answer that question because of their experience with that program.
So in terms of, as we look out around the country, Housing First is being implemented in a number of places, right?
Right.
We're not necessarily seeing the evidence pointing in any particular direction on that?
Well, as I think as Kristen mentioned, so Housing First isn't so much a particular property, it's sort of how the whole system, and so the roles that the government and nonprofits and private entities are playing, I think we can definitely look around for some models of what's going on.
So the Corporation for Supportive Housing, CSH, they do permanent supportive housing as a financial model, and they have a lot of resources, and they will do, there's some information we can provide you that it looks at a development from concept through services, what funding was involved, what needed, how they're going to make it work for the developer, owner, and then the service provider throughout the life of the property. So we can help with that, and there are definitely models out there, but it's not something that HUD really comes in and provides technical assistance on. We can link you up for sure.
Thank you.
All right, I think our chief has a question or a comment. Chief?
Well, I just have one question before you go, and this may not be yours, but I've heard the number bandied about of a waiting list of 1,600 or something like that. And I get the feeling in this community there's the visible homeless and there's the invisible homeless. And I'm really curious what the actual need is in this community, because I think the sheriff spoke about it earlier. There's a huge population that has mental health issues or alcohol or drug problems. Do those people, in reality, would they qualify or be able to get into the housing situations you're talking about? And I know on paper it's easy to say yes, but I also understand that landlords can be very picky, and rightfully so. They're concerned about all of their the folks that live in their apartments or dwellings. I'm just trying to get a grip of reality of what the real need is, because if we have a list of 1,600 on a waiting list, I'm just curious how big the list is of people that aren't on a waiting list.
That's a good question. It's like, what is the mystery of X? Yeah, exactly. Do you have comments?
I mean, I think it's a critical question, not only what is the need, but then I heard a second part of your question, which was, what are the barriers that we're not talking about people actually being able to get into those homes? And so I think those are two really, really important questions. As I mentioned, we've learned a lot through the work that we've done in the last couple of years, working very closely with partners on ending veteran homelessness around the country. And as I mentioned, there's been a big push to look at things like, criminal history and substance abuse, mental health issues, how to not only prepare renters to have a positive experience and be prepared, but also how to prepare landlords to work with those folks and to give them that sort of comfort. But it even includes things like looking at their screening process, looking at their screening criteria. Sometimes they've had to come into HUD, if they're HUD properties, to get us to approve changes to their screening criteria. So, I'm not going to stand here and say it's easy or that there's one step. I think it's an ongoing sort of education experience with, the property owners in your community and with the renters in your community, and to take a good look at those wait lists and to understand, there may be people who are on the wait list that, and I think the Housing Authority directors here could speak much, much more intelligently about this, how they manage their waiting list. It's an art and a science, both, to really look at who's on the waiting list, who is the highest in need, who's not on the waiting list, who needs to get on the waiting list, all of those questions.
All right, thanks, and I should have asked the question earlier. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but thanks.
Okay, one more question, and then we're going to move on to continuum of care. Mayor Clark.
Thank you very. Can you hear me? Okay. As I've been listening to this presentation, it has occurred to me that in the Housing First, we're talking about also being able to bring housing, services, and so forth together in a way that's very accessible. So my question to you is, have you found that people, when they have a voice and a choice, and this is a term I picked up from our Together Toward Tomorrow the other day, when people have a voice and a choice in how they approach their own problem solving, do you find that the folks that have been housed are beginning to choose and access services at a higher rate and more successfully?
Yes, that is what the evidence shows.
Okay, that was a quick answer. I like that. All right, I'm sorry? Oh, the answer was yes, that they are more capable to take what they've learned and then seek out the services that they need more rapidly and, in effect, find the services that they need that are better matched to them, maybe?
If the engagement is also using a best practice, like motivational interviewing. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. And so part of that, too, is are you really doing a housing first model? Are you using motivational interviewing? Is it being implemented in a specific way as well? But yes, so the evidence shows that they are more likely to engage in services and have better outcomes of maintaining that housing.
Thank you very much, ladies. We really appreciate you taking time and being with us. I know we're going to be talking with you, I think, again and again. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So now we're going to move on to HUD's continuum of care program. What is COC and why is it so important to us to know about it? And Joe Zimmer was one of the individuals. Joe Zimmer is here, but Amber Reeves from Community Action Agency was going to be with us today, but she's unable to be here. And in her place, we have Diane Mary and Linda Stripe, and they're also from Community Action Agency. So I'm going to introduce you and give you the microphone and have you come right on up here. It's kind of awkward. I think we'll set this up differently next.
Hi, I'm Diane Mary, but I have Amber's notes, so hopefully I can provide some information. So we're here to talk about continuum of care, which those of us that work with the continuum of care lovingly refer to it as COC. What is COC? I think that most people think about the COC as the HUD federal funding stream that provides housing and assistance to homeless persons, which it is. And in this sense, Marion and Polk counties have been very successful in competing for this funding. As formerly a standalone COC and now as part of the Oregon Balance of State COC called the Rural Oregon Continuum of Care. In its broader sense, COC is the term for the local body that plans and coordinates a locality's homeless services. Its goals are to promote community-wide planning and strategic use of resources to address homelessness, to improve coordination and integration with mainstream resources and other homeless programs, and it improves data collection and performance measurement. It allows each community then to tailor its programs to their particular strengths and challenges. So in this broader sense, Marion and Polk counties have not been as successful in bringing together and keeping together a good COC. We're very encouraged with the formation of this task force as it embodies much of what a great COC is made of. I'm going to let Jo Zimmer talk. She is the coordinator of our Rural Oregon Continuum of Care, talk a little bit about that organization.
Hi, thanks. Excuse me. This is really exciting, so thank you all for this. And I just wanted to explain really quickly, my role as coordinator of Rural Oregon Continuum of Care is, ROC is a 28-county continuum of care organization. Really quickly, I just wanted to show you this map. All the colored areas on this map are in the Rural Oregon Continuum of Care.
Yeah.
There are 7 continuums of care throughout the state, and this is by far the largest at 28 counties. And Marion Polk used to be its own continuum of care and folded into the ROC in, I believe, 2011 and made the 28 counties. And so really briefly, over the 28 counties, ROC, currently, if we get funded in the 2015 funding competition, we will be operating 44 separate projects over the 28 counties. Permanent housing, supportive services, which is the ready-to-rent programs that you heard about earlier, transitional housing, an HMIS to support the data collection throughout the 28 counties, and then a planning project which supports my role in coordinating continuum of care and also completing the annual funding competition. As relates to this group, this task force, the Rural Oregon Continuum of Care is obviously a very large organization and will rely on its local, regional groups like this to begin feeding information up the chain in terms of funding priorities, identifying the specific populations that you might want to be serving so that it can roll up into the more broad 28 county thinking in terms of strategic planning. Each of the regional areas has a certain amount of what they call pro rata need that comes out in a formula that is quote unquote targeted to go to a specific area. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to guarantee stay there for perpetuity, but through bodies such as this that have priority conversations and actually determine information and what's housing types and funding needs and all of that in the local area helps us keep the funding where it's most needed throughout the 28 county continuum. In your local area, that currently relates to a little over $700,000, I think, in what, 5 projects? Well, 5 projects and 3 agencies. 5 projects and 3 agencies in this 2-county area that puts out the COC funds. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, but I'm always happy to support these guys and show up and answer questions, provide information and whatnot.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Absolutely.
So we haven't talked about arches at all tonight, but I just lost my glasses, so that's fine. But you run arches, right, through community action, and
Yes.
does some of this continuum of care money help support arches? And then the second part of my question is, when you were at the Public Safety Council, you mentioned that Arches is actually implementing Housing First, which was news to me. I didn't know that. So could you speak briefly about how you're doing that? So what I remember is you're doing it, but you don't have enough. That's my shorthand recollection of what you said.
Right. So Arches does receive COC funding. It supports one of our longer-term housing programs. Help me out, Linda.
Microphone.
Sorry. So we have ESG dollars, pardon? Emergency Solutions Grant, sorry. We get stuck in these acronyms. It's faster for us to work in. And then we also have a permanent housing and then the supportive housing or supportive services that is the rent tenant education portion. That's all falls under the continuum of care dollars. We also receive the supportive services for veteran families grant, which isn't under the continuum of care. The grant itself isn't, but we're participating in the continuum of care with that because there's all kinds of things that come with coordination with all of those grants within the continuum.
I have a question, if I may. We are now at less than 10 minutes to 6 o'clock, and I know I still have 4 items that I wanted to talk about very briefly. And I also wanted to know that on the initiative documents that came from the different agencies that signed into this thing, we talked about doing some homework. We have 41 days between this meeting and the next meeting. And I want to make sure we've got information, but I want to make sure in the next 10 minutes we've got an idea of where we're headed in the next 41 days, because that's 41 days people are going to be homeless. So I want to have an action tonight, if I can, of some sort, or at least homework for us as the board members.
Right. So we probably need to wrap up.
Yeah, we're
here.
happy to give up the money.
Okay. Right. So Anna had went to the town hall with Kurt Schrader, Congressman Schrader. So I'm going to wrap up the meeting. So maybe we'll just end, Warren, with your 4 things, since you're just itching to tell us what they are.
I've been itching.
And, well, let me just tell you that the 4 co-leaders actually met once before this to kind of get things. You were at the meeting when we conceptualized it. We had another meeting to get organized. We have debrief meetings scheduled between each of these meetings, and we're going to move through a process where we're going to lay out what the topics and the agendas are going to be. But certainly we want input from the entire group, and we don't have time to do that type of work session tonight. But if you want to send in, if you have specific thoughts about topics that you want on future agendas, I would suggest that you email those to us. And so why don't you go ahead with your 4 things?
So the first one was Hitesh handed out a resource list of resources. It's a draft copy. Somewhere along the way, I think when I spoke at the First Congregational Church, I happened to get a Salem resource list, and it has phone numbers more than just simply names and names of agencies.
Right. We did that on purpose because there are. I was a consultant here in this community before I became a county commissioner. There are probably in my attic. I probably have 50 different versions of that from the 1990s. The problem is that the minute that you put one of those lists together, they are obsolete. So we tried to stay away from that. I know Polk County has a list that they've provided of theirs. We just wanted to kind of give a sense of the scope, but 211 is really designed to keep that information and keep it updated, so we don't want to duplicate that effort.
Thank you. There are people out there that don't have it. I was just making sure that some of this ends up on the website where they're looking for resources. The other thing that I thought about is homework. 2015 homeless count is out. There's a report from Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency. I highly recommend. I know the counties put out their report, but this is a very good grassroots, in the mud kind of report about who are the homeless, at least in 2015. And I think within the next, I'm guessing, John, within the next month, the next report will be coming out for 2016?
It probably won't be in the next month, but they are working on compiling that data.
I would imagine that it's a lot of the information that's in here will be moved to the next, but it's a great way to start to understand the homeless and who the homeless population is. In the 2015 report, as an example, it said that 21% of the homeless were homeless by choice. And to understand that, that's their perception, but that's part of what I think that read this report in great depth. I
can appreciate that. Laura's presentation of the panel actually was drawn from that homeless report.
Excellent.
But we can put that on the website.
And the other one, I got an email this afternoon from Circuit Judge Mary James. It had to do with some money that was available through the Oregon Health Authority Health Systems Division, $2.6 million that is going towards mental health housing funds, community mental health housing trust funds, and the Alcohol and Drug-Free Housing Trust. I don't know enough about it. It's not my area, but it'd be something that maybe on the next meeting it would be nice to have some information about that given to the rest of the community. Mary James is very much into that know of that. Let's see, what else do I have? Homeless count, the money, the resource list. Oh, and the last one I had an individual judge here in town who does the mental health court. And he was mentioning the issue of people who are arrested in parks with alcohol are charged with a crime, and it ends up on their record as opposed to a fine. And as a result of having a record, it makes it difficult, at least by them, perceived by them, that it's difficult to rent because they've got this crime on their record now. Now the question is,
maybe Jerry could speak to that, or Jason. Do you know what he's talking about?
the question I had basically was, is there a way to switch this so it doesn't end up as a criminal record and more or less we get this resolved, but it's not something that's going to hound them and prevent them from renting?
Well, I think that's possible. I think the city could charge it as a violation, but I'd have to look into that.
Okay, well, homework.
Jason, well, we got a couple of minutes. Jason, I think if you could give us the 30-second on the court team and what their role is, because I think that would fall into this if you have someone with mental illness that's
Sure.
law enforcement runs into.
You've asked a lot of good questions. I believe the funding that you talked about is OHA grant funding that Senator Courtney got through the last session, and our health department is taking a look at that. So just in terms of that 2.6 million, and we definitely are looking at that for sobering stations and detox. We definitely there's a need in the community for that. Our crisis outreach response team, it's a collaborative effort. We work together with Salem Police Department. We have a deputy and a clinician that do mobile crisis, a Salem police officer and a clinician that do mobile crisis, and then we have another deputy and clinician that follow up on the lower level issues, in specific what you're talking about, somebody that's maybe suffering from either a drug and alcohol issue or mental illness, and we try to refer them to community level services instead of citing them for alcohol in the park or other low level charges, and put them in the criminal justice system, because we've found just case study after case study, they don't get better, they get worse, and then we incur costs in the criminal justice system that obviously don't yield the best outcome. So that's why we're really focusing on this issue and being creative, because our old ways, our old methods of law enforcement of just arrest, they don't work with this population, and so looking at other ways to go after those root causes.
Thank you. Well, by the way, the judge that I'm referring to was Phil Schwager. I don't know if you know him, but anyway. Thank you for the answers. Those are my four. It was supposed to be homework, or at least have people look at these things, or we're doing something while we're not here in this room.
So any other comments from the task force? We've got just a couple minutes.
Just a follow-up to that is some of us from the Kaiser City Council and other cities within Marion County had an opportunity to do a jail tour, and our tour guide, and bless me, I can't now remember his name right now. He did a great job, but explained that process of how to divert people from criminal justice and into appropriate care. And then what I believe is even more training and more resources available to help our law enforcement, and that partnership that you have with clinicians to continue to make that more and more successful, get people where they need to be, and safe for the community at the same time. It was a great opportunity to learn what's already being done here.
Thank you, Kathy. We're right at 6 o'clock. Anything burning that someone cannot send on email and would like to say? Ron, yes.
Yeah. Can you, when you do your debrief, can you send out homework that would help us move ahead? I don't want to sit here for 41 days doing nothing.
All right, thank you. So we appreciate everyone being here, and we will, you have the list of meetings in front of you. The website is homelesstaskforce.net. It will be live tomorrow at noon. We thank CCTV for televising this, and the replay schedule will also be on the website. And we will move forward with the strategy over the course of this year, so hang in there with us, and thank you all.